I'm not as up to date as you and Omar, maybe Rachel, are on Israeli policy vis-a-vis Palestine. I know enough to be dangerous. I have friends in both camps. But here's the thing that I took away from it, just from a political and an optical perspective. When Netanyahu started introducing the soldiers who were sitting in the gallery as his guests, I really focused in when he introduced the Ethiopian soldier, that's an Israeli citizen, and how when he woke up on October 7th, he didn't have a car. He ran 7 miles to the border with his arm in hand and went to the front line. Again, regardless of what you think about the conflict there, I thought that was brilliant. It was powerful. And for him to have those soldiers that span the racial gap sitting up as his guest, I thought that was powerful. It was very, very powerful.
It is definitely a powerful act of political dishonesty. In theater.
That's what a speech like that's supposed to do, because they're trying to persuade people like me.
Right. And so, for those that didn't catch the speech, a big part of what Prime Minister Netanyahu did, and to me, this was a speech designed to, just like in the era of Obama, to kind of show up the president, to wield power and to bypass the American political order, the executive political order, and go directly to both the American people and to the Congress. He said that he's going to achieve total victory. He declared the desire and a commitment to achieving total victory against Hamas. And he said he denounced the opponents of the war in Gaza who live in America, all of us who are challenging this war in Gaza, as quote unquote idiots.
I heard idiots. Do you mind if I just weigh in on this particular point?
Yeah, please.
It was an incredible sight for me, by the way. Obviously, the fact that he was invited in the first place is just incredibly distasteful and disgusting in the middle of everything that is happening. He is wanted by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court on war crimes. Israel is right now at the ICJ for investigating the crime of genocide. And you have, again, the testimonies of what's unfolding on the ground from human rights organizations, from the soldiers, the videos that Israeli soldiers themselves are posting of what they're doing in Gaza is absolutely horrific. And to extend them that invitation in the first place, I thought was outrageous. But you add on top of that precisely that point that you just made, that Netanyahu is attacking American college students. He's a foreign leader accused of war crimes. From my perspective, it's a done deal. He is a war criminal. That's the only way to describe him. A foreign war criminal is attacking American college students who are the conscience of this country, who are the ones standing up and saying war crimes are not okay, the U.S. should not participate in them. Netanyahu attacks them, and American lawmakers stand up and applaud a foreign war criminal who is attacking American students. I thought the optics of that are absolutely awful and disgusting. It might appeal to a narrow set of people who are really hardcore on this, but beyond that, it really just highlights how deeply broken American politics are. It does not happen that you invite a foreign leader to attack Americans and people applaud. And somehow with Israel, it's always the exception. And it's partly because Republicans see this as a wedge issue to squeeze Democrats. They think they can peel off, American Jews are overwhelmingly liberal and progressive and they vote Democrat. And they think by proving that they're more pro-Israel, they can peel some of that off. But if you're not hardcore on this issue, this really does stand out to you as something that is, it's just grotesque. And I don't know how anybody can miss it, frankly.
That I was actually wondering about that and sort of how that will play out in the minds of voters. Omar, does Kamala Harris's previous statements, previous record on this issue, make you more or less optimistic that we'll see a more favorable policy direction from a Harris presidency? I'll tell you from my perspective, I see no indication that anything will be different. And I say that partly based on just a clear-headed analysis of American presidents since the 70s. There's been no U.S. president that has offered any profound challenge to the Israeli apartheid state. George H.W. Bush spoke out against settlements. President Obama abstained from a vote, a UN Security Council vote. Not exactly profiles in courage here.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to believe that Harris, who has given the AIPAC speeches, who has echoed the talking points, who has offered, these sort of romantic, warm and fuzzy, feel-good narratives about the formation of Israel, and against the backdrop of that, when she was running for Senate,
for more than 9 months,
president,
Israel's soldiers have shown boundless courage.
It sounds like she might agree with this.
With us today,
we've got the speech going. Yep. It's one of those things where, just to the point that Raynard was just making a second ago about the fact that Republicans tend to skew this way, that is relatively more recent. If anything, frankly, historically, it's been the other way around, of sort of Democrats being the ones who are much closer to AIPAC and therefore much more supportive of Israel. You've had an example of Ronald Reagan when Israel invaded Lebanon and was bombing civilians indiscriminately. Reagan got on the phone and demanded an immediate end to that onslaught, compared it to the Holocaust in the course of that phone conversation. And Israel to pull back. That's unimaginable today. So in a way, we've had a deterioration of the policy of the relationship between the U.S. and Israel that's at this point unimaginable. Look, I don't think that Harris independently, that there's anything in her past that would make this particularly promising. What is potentially promising is the reading of where young progressive voters are, and the fact that there is a cost to continuing down the same path of just carte blanche for Israel to do whatever it wants, right or wrong, no questioning, unconditional military funding, unconditional diplomatic support. That is not sitting well with young progressive voters anymore. And it is only the realization that there is a political cost to continuing down the same track. Is there a hope that there could be the possibility of change with Kamala Harris? But to your point also, Mark, not a particularly significant one, right? We're not going to see a major shift in a Harris administration's policy compared to Biden. But even if it's a small one, small differences at the scale of violence that we're currently seeing could in fact make a huge difference. If the only thing Kamala Harris does different from Biden is apply a little bit more serious pressure to get us a ceasefire, that is the difference between thousands of Palestinians getting to live or die. So even a difference that small can actually have a really, really significant impact. So in a way, I agree with you. I don't think that there are signs of a major shift in policy with Harris, but I'm hoping a minor shift in policy that can actually have a big impact.
Rebecca, today, this week, when it was announced that Vice President Harris would not be present at this joint session, normally, obviously, she would be, she's President Pro Tem of the Senate. They said she won't be appearing, but she'll be having a private meeting with Netanyahu. People are projecting a green screen onto her, just like they did Obama. People are saying, "Oh, see, that means she's really down with the Palestinians. She's not even going to show up for Netanyahu." I'm like, nah, I don't think that's it. I think she don't want to be seen clapping for things or not clapping for things. I think it's about the kind of presentation that she would be accountable for if she shows up. And in that private meeting, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to believe about what she'll say. My point is, and my question to you is, how much are you seeing from your vantage point, people assuming, particularly Black voters and progressive voters, respectively, how many of them are projecting onto Kamala Harris sort of these grand expectations of her being a super political progressive?
A lot of younger people that I'm speaking to and people, millennials, we are all having this conversation about, okay, her stance being a part of the Biden administration is huge with she is in the Biden administration right now. She's a part of it. She's the vice president. And for her right now, we see whatever Biden says, that's kind of what she goes with. I see the empathy, and it sucks that the bar is that low that we have to say, okay, she's going to have some kind of difference in how she feels, and maybe more vocal about that when it comes to like speaking about a ceasefire. But there is still this tie and being an ally to Israel. But I like how you put that, though, where you said it could make a difference with thousands of people still being alive, Palestinian lives. But a lot of people are looking at this is under a microscope for a lot of people. The moment that she says anything about Israel, Palestine, a ceasefire, no ceasefire, or however she words it, that is going to be what people remember. That is going to be just like how we just heard Biden speak about it. What we remembered in that moment was when he talked about the hostages and not about the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people and the people who've been murdered, the genocide that's happening there. But of course, it's the ties to Israel. Now, what I do believe is a lot of people do have their speculations on as to why she would be meeting Netanyahu just person to person. That's because she don't want to be seen, like you said, the presentation wise. I am running for president. I am on my first few days of this whole thing. I know that if I am in the room, I am going to have to probably like clap or whatever, as an ally to Israel leadership. But right now,
by the way, my producers are telling me that Vice President Harris also had a previously scheduled event speaking to the Zeta Phi Beta sorority.
She did. People were upset about that. Fox News was saying that she was speaking to a colored sorority. It was a whole thing. The word colored was trending because they had that conversation. So yeah, she decided to go speak to the Zetas. And so
dilemmas of a black candidate. Only a black candidate would have that dilemma.
Exactly.
But honestly, at a moment where she's trying to galvanize political and economic support from black women in particular as a grassroots political movement, it's probably more important to talk to Zetas, Deltas, AKAs, you know what I'm saying, or SG Rose than it is to be talking to Netanyahu in a joint session of Congress. She can get Netanyahu on the phone whenever she wants.